All right, gang, good morning. We are back for yet another episode this week, another exciting episode. So we are happy that you guys are here. We want to welcome you to the show. We are the real HR show, and my name is Brenda Neckfall. I'm known as Brenda the HR lady, and with me is Suzanne Lucas, also known as the evil HR lady. And we're just excited. How's Switzerland? It looks like it's chilly.
I'm cold. I wasn't cold a little bit ago, and then suddenly the sun went behind the clouds and it's getting dark and I'm freezing. So now I'm wearing my sweater. If I get too cold, I'll just flip up the hoodie.
You'll bundle up.
Then I can be like
Jedi Knight
or something.
Then you can go Jedi Knight on us there.
That's right.
That's awesome.
That is right. And the new Mandalorian comes out at the end of October.
Oh, does it really? I cannot wait.
October 30th. I know. I'm so excited.
With everything that's going on with COVID, unfortunately, all the normal stuff, like right now, I should be literally under my covers at night, every night on the couch, for at least once a week, freaking out over American Horror Story. And it's not on right now. Right? Love that show. So
I've never watched American Horror Story, but
oh my gosh, yes. No, all the normal stuff that we like to watch on a regular basis gone. And so I'm happy to learn that The Mandalorian is coming back at the end of the month because I just am.
It is good. And I have heard that the next episode of The Crown is also on schedule to arrive in November.
See, now I have not watched that, but I am at Billions. I watch Billions. American Horror Story, and those kind of are my two right now.
You got to watch The Crown.
Okay, we'll check it out. And check it out.
It's really good, and none of this has anything to do with what our topic is today.
No, just catching up.
Brenda and Suzanne talk about television.
That's not our topic. So our topic today is when to tell an exempt employee no.
Yes, and this goes on with our theme. We have a little theme this month. Last week, we talked about when to say no for remote work. And today, we're going to talk about when to say no to exempt employees. And we're going to be saying no the entire month of October. It should be November, but sometimes we're not that bright. And we decided to do no in October. And so this is no October.
That's right. Not KNOW as in no. Like, no, don't do.
Yeah, just like no.
I didn't want the puppy to think I was talking to him. All right.
Oh, poor puppy. He's like, wait, I'm not doing anything.
I know, right? He's sleeping, so he didn't hear it. That's awesome. So I think what's important is that we kick off by helping you guys understand what exactly an exempt employee is and isn't based off of FLSA.
Right. And, this was actually my very first HR job as a temp in an HR department, as a temp administrative assistant. And I was in the compensation and benefits department. And my boss gave me something to do. I can't remember what it was, but it was something with exempt and non-exempt employees. And I had to go to her and say, what's an exempt employee? And, she gave me a brief explanation. And basically, this is someone that is not eligible for overtime under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And there are qualifications that you have to meet to be not eligible for overtime. And the first most basic is you have to have a certain salary level. And they just raised this on January 1st, 2020. And right now it is $684 a week, or an annual salary of $35,568. And that's the most basic thing. But having that alone doesn't make you exempt. The next part is your duties test.
Yes.
And that has to do with what you actually do as part of your job.
Yep. And, when you are an exempt employee or you're considering an exempt employee, there's actually different types in the duties test, different types of exemptions. And we want to make sure that you guys understand what those are, because just because you may have the title of manager in the title doesn't necessarily mean that person is automatically an exempt employee. So there's
a lot of restaurants have gotten themselves into trouble on this.
Exactly.
Because they're like, oh, you're the shift manager, you're exempt.
Yep.
No, you're not.
So if you guys want to read more into this, you guys can pull up Department of Labor fact sheet. Make sure you put the hashtag in there, 17A, number 17A, and it'll actually help you understand what the exemptions are. So the first exemption is the executive exemption. Those are for individuals. So once you pass the threshold, so to determine whether or not somebody, like Suzanne just mentioned, is a non-exempt employee, or excuse me, is exempt or is eligible to be exempt employees, it has to meet that financial threshold. If it doesn't, they're automatically non-exempt. If it does, then yes, maybe you can continue to consider whether or not this position is in fact exempt. So we get to executive exemption. Those are your high-level individuals, people who are your C-suite, your anybody who's making any type of determination on behalf of the organization. Change of status of employees. They're making true business decisions in matters of importance. And then there's administrative exemptions. Administrative exemptions are, believe it or not, the individuals, like if you have a CEO and they have an administrative assistant, that's the only one that can actually really be an exempt employee as a quote unquote secretary. Most of them are going to have to be on an hourly basis. But again, It all depends on the duties test.
I'm confused on that because they see administrative exemption and they think, oh, admins.
No, administrative as in like apex leaders, the big leaders, your
the C-suites, the corner offices.
Yeah, well, that's executive exemption. Then there's administrative exemption, so they're different. There's their primary duty must be to perform of office or non-manual work directly related to management or general business operations. So those are your directors, those are your managers, those are your AVPs, right? Your assistant vice presidents. And then your professional exemptions are individuals like us. Even though we do make, if we were sitting in the HR role, we're making decisions of matters of importance. These are individuals who are learned professionals like physicians, dentists, anybody that you have on salary, engineers, right? HR people, because if we're not making decisions or matter of importance as it moves the business forward, likely we will fall under this. There's also the computer employee exemption, and this is a little bit different, where we're talking about system analysts, computer programmers, software engineers, not IT help desk. Those guys are a little bit different. Then there's outside sales, and then something that is considered, that's called highly compensated employees. And that also has a monetary threshold as well. Blue collar employees, automatically, if it's a blue collar job where they're using their hands, physical skills, energy, involving repetitive operations, they are automatically non-exempt hourly employees. I lost your sound.
Sorry.
There you go. You muted yourself.
I did. It's really important to note that that some of these blue collar workers can make big bucks.
Yep.
Plumbers, electricians. I have a friend who's a lineman. Not a football lineman, but a lineman that deals with when the power goes out. That's him, and he makes a lot more money than I do.
Yeah,
but he's still non-exempt, and he's still eligible for overtime. And by golly, he earns it. He earns it. Absolutely, it's a great source of income. So it's not just a salary thing. It's what you're actually doing. That's the important part. And it's not the department you work in, and it's not the title that you have. Managers, there's managerial exemption, but you have to be performing mostly managerial duties. Mm-hmm. If your title is manager, but you're mainly stocking shelves, you're not exempt.
Yeah. So that's the distinction. And so like what we were talking about in the last episode that we did, is that, we know that through our career, and we felt it too. I mean, in our beginning, I guarantee you, Suzanne's felt that. I know I have. And that is sometimes employers just feel like they get pigeonholed, meaning that they know something is up, but they don't necessarily, they need to render a decision on something. They don't necessarily have the language, or they don't really even know what to say. And that's kind of what our no series about, is that we're helping you understand when you can say no. So, last time we talked about when you can say no, to a work from home environment. Now here we're talking about, employers sometimes, don't often tell their salaried exempt employees no, as it pertains to coming in late, starting, working at different hours throughout the day. And it's just kind of interesting. I'm going to go ahead and kick that off a little bit better than I did, because this really came from your realm, and I'm just guiding the transition, I suppose.
I had somebody on my Evil HR Lady Facebook group say, well, you can't require exempt employees to be in at a certain time. That ruins their exemption.
Yeah,
and that is absolutely not true. There are so many positions where you can not only require it, you have to require it. Yeah. And, one of the examples is if you're a dentist, you have patients that show up at 8 o'clock. You can't just have the dentist wander in anytime he pleases. The dentist needs to be there when the patients are there. And if the dentist meets all of the criteria for exemption, they're a high-level professional, they're, licensed, and certainly should make more than the threshold. The dentist is exempt, but you can certainly fire, discipline, whatever, if your dentist shows up late, because it's important for them to be there. And there's a lot of jobs where it doesn't matter what time an exempt employee comes in, but as the manager, as the business owner, you can still require it. You can still require a specific time frame that they need to be there. Is that always wise? No, it's not always wise. But is it legal? Yes, it's legal. You can say you have to be in here at 8 o'clock. Now, what you can't do is if someone is supposed to be there at 8 and they show up at 9, you can't dock their pay.
Right.
But you can discipline them, fire them. You can dock their PTO, their paid time off. But they don't get to choose. I mean, you can allow them to choose, but legally you can choose. You can say this is the qualification of the job, is that this job starts at 8 and you must be here at 8.
Right. Easy. And, and that comes into that pigeonhole thing. It's like people know what it is that they want to say, but they don't always know how to say it, or if they can say it. And in this case, yes. I mean, remember, you are the employer. You control the work, and you control the work expectations. And, this is an era to where we've been, as a country, we've seen a lot of corporations and a lot of businesses really give, job expansion and allow people to job design. And that's all great. But at the end of the day, you still have to control the work, because if you don't control the work, your work is out of control. And so is your company. Customers their needs aren't going to be met. Deadlines aren't going to be met. It's all about setting the appropriate expectations. And this is definitely one of them.
It is all about expectations. And this is something that you need to be clear with when you're interviewing. Either you're interviewing to hire someone or you're interviewing for a job yourself, is what does a day in the life of this job look like? What are the expectations? There's a lot of businesses out there that have what's called core business hours. And they'll say, everybody needs to be on site between 9 and 2. But if you want to come in early, that's fine. If you want to come in right at 9 and stay later, that's fine. If you want to come in from 9 to 2, that's fine. And then go home and then work from home for, after the kids go to bed, that's fine too. But you have to be there for those core hours. And that's something that a lot of businesses have done to give employees the flexibility that they want and still get the work done. Right. But you don't have to do that. And for some jobs, it literally doesn't matter what time you do it, as long as you are there. But right. Even in that situation, you can have somebody who's like, I'm super night owl and I want to work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And you say, fine, you work whenever. But we have staff meeting at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. You got to be there.
Yep, absolutely.
You can do that.
And don't fall into this trap to where you when you're looking at your exempt employees, your non-exempt employees, is managing their schedules differently as being fair or not fair. These are two totally different types of jobs. Your exempt employees are going to be your employees with higher levels of responsibility. There's a different demand and a different requirement for them to meet the expectations in order for your company to move forward. Conversely, the same thing with your hourly employees. If your hourly employees, want to work at, want to be in a position where, they can work remotely for the most part, they can have a little bit more latitude on their schedule, then you know what? They need to work to become or get into a position where they are a salaried employee in an organization that's going to support that. But if that doesn't fit for your company, don't worry about them not feeling like the hours are different and fair between a salaried employee and an hourly employee. This is two totally, and you're not even comparing oranges and apples at that point.
It's so important to remember that, and to remember that it's not a punishment to be an hourly employee.
Exactly.
And I know a couple of years ago when the Department of Labor was talking about raising the salary exemption level to $44,000, which didn't happen, which I'm glad of. That was too high of a level. But a lot of people who were exempt in between those salary levels were freaking out because they felt like it would be a demotion. It's not. Being hourly doesn't mean you're a bad person or not valued. It's just a different qualification based on the work that you do. We absolutely positively need plumbers. And it is highly skilled and highly in demand, but it's still an hourly paid job. And that's just the nature of the job. That's just how it is. And it's not bad. It's not good. It's just how it is. And that's the same thing with these exemption rules. And sometimes managers can feel a little bit cowed by employees that are like, well, I'm exempt, so I can take off early, or I can do this, or I can do that. You can still set those parameters. Just because being flexible is nice and sometimes the right thing to do doesn't mean that legally you have to do it.
Right.
If your exempt employee comes to you and says, hey, I have a meeting with my kid's teacher today, I'm going to be gone for an hour. The right thing to do is to say, okay, good luck. See you when you get back. But legally, you can say, no, you can't leave. And sometimes you have to say no. Again, with our dentist example, if this dentist doesn't give you any notice, he's got patients coming in. You can't just cancel them on the last minute. And that's a serious issue. Should you be flexible as you possibly can? Yes. Do you have to be flexible? You don't. You can say no to it. And this is not me advocating for, Suzanne's school of micromanagement. Like, I want just button seat time. That's not what I'm advocating for. I just want to make it clear that you have the power as the boss to say no. If something doesn't work for your business. But keep in mind, if you say no for things that would work for your business, what will eventually happen is your good employees will leave you.
Right. And, and there are people out there that do take advantage of being a salaried employee to an extreme. And it's okay to say, no, you can't do this. And we were talking about this earlier. I used to work, the company shall remain nameless, because this is a great example of bad leadership. And we used to have a director. She'd come in, like her team would start roughly about 7 in the morning. They would work from 7 in the morning to 4, or they would come in at 8 until 5, or 9 until 6. And so she would start strolling in somewhere between 9 and 10 a.m. She'd go down to the cafeteria. She would grab something to eat, usually something not good for her because she was a diabetic. Come back up, sit down, have something to eat, do a round, check in with her people, attend one meeting or maybe 2. And then it started off as, she'd leave 4 o'clock in the afternoon versus 5. And then, it progressed on to 3. And the next thing you know it, she was out anywhere between 1 to 2. And she was like we have no idea what she was doing. Apparently she has the most highly disorganized life ever, because it was always, oh, I have to go do this. I have to go do this. I have to go, it was like always managing her life. And it was just like, my God, woman, what do you do? Why don't you just be a little messy like the rest of us? And, and it was, we couldn't understand what it was that she was doing. But, unfortunately, what happened is that her entire team pulled all of the weight of what she wasn't carrying. And the leader knew what was going on, and he would never do anything about it. At first, she would pop her head in, just like, hey, listen, I want to let you know I'm getting out of here, an hour early at 4:00. And he's like, no problem. Then all of a sudden, she just stopped doing it. And then she was just leaving at 1:00, sometimes 2:00 in the afternoon. So, I mean, she was literally putting in at most a 4-hour workday and being highly compensated for her work. You can say no to that. Please, in fact, do say no to that. That's bad.
Do say no to that. Absolutely do say no to that. And you know what? If she comes back and she says, well, that's all I can work. And if you value her work, you can say, okay, great. So you're working 20 hours a week. We're going to cut your salary by 50%. And as long as that salary is still above that threshold, that $689 a week threshold, she can still be exempt. If you cut it and it's below that, then she needs to be hourly and paid by the hour. And it's possible to have a part-time exempt employee. I've been a part-time exempt employee. You don't have to put up with somebody not doing the work. Now, that isn't to say that you need to closely monitor the number of hours that your exempt employees put in. Kind of the theory with exempt employees is that you may work 35 hours this week, but you're going to work 50 next week. And then during your busy season, you're going to be working 60 hours a week, every week for 6 weeks. And it balances out over time. You can get into a situation where somebody is completely, like Brenda's executive, taking advantage and not working at all, or not working more than half time and getting paid full time. And you can have a situation where an exempt employee is working 70, 80 hours a week, and they're completely overwhelmed and they need help. And at that point, you need to step in and evaluate what's going on here. And is it that this person has that much work to do and you need to reevaluate? Is it that this person is a micromanager and they are spending all of their time redoing work that their direct employees have done? Or is this person in the office for 80 hours a week, but is mainly on Facebook and watching YouTube videos?
Right.
All of those are a possibility.
Yep, absolutely. All righty. So I know we're kind of cranking it out. I've got a puppy that is in a cone and needs to go outside here soon. Or else we're going to have an accident. But all right. So we started doing a question of the episode, and where we each ask each other a question, and we don't know what the question is going to be. So we're constantly being caught. So last week I went first. Do you want to go?
I will go first. So here is my question.
Okay.
I don't want to be one of those recruiters who ghosts candidates, but my hiring managers are so slow to make decisions and keep changing their minds about requirements. How can I keep candidates informed when I can't even get information from my hiring managers?
Oh, that's a good one. All right. So first off, I'm thrilled at the fact that you are taking into consideration what a candidate is going through and what they're feeling and wanting to communicate with them. I think that's fantastic. And I love the fact that you want to keep doing that. So here's the answer to this. Sometimes stuff happens, and what you want to do is you want to give them responses, if you can be as non-committal as possible, and just give them updates. And what I mean by non-committal is that if you don't have the answer, you don't want to say, I don't have an answer for you right now. Just say, hey, you know what? It turns out that the process is taking just a little bit longer than we anticipated. And you know what? That's a very good thing, because we want to make a thorough and careful decision on what it is that, who it is that we're bringing into the company. We've got qualified individuals, and this decision is now really difficult as a result of that. Something simple like that. If it turns out that you guys have a hiring freeze, which that can happen, or if it turns out that the position has been put on hold as far as finding somebody to replace, then have that conversation, and you can be honest in a way that doesn't make your company look like you're incompetent or build the wrong type of impression on the candidate that you don't want. Just say, hey, listen, something has come up and we are putting a hold on this right now. That doesn't mean that we're necessarily closing it as of this moment. However, we do need to take a pause. I worked for a company. We had the exact same situation happen. We had a hiring freeze. And so we were very honest about it. Just like, what? Hey, listen, we just, we're taking a quick pause on this. We expect to be able to resume recruiting for this position in about 2 to 3 months. And we would love to continue that conversation with you if you are still available. I'm going to keep you at the top of the list. And I apologize. That's just where we are with this right now. Just be very straight and upfront, because you got to remember that if you're not treating your potential candidates with that level of respect, sorry, here he is, Conehead.
That level of sweet puppy.
Hi, baby. That level of respect. I mean, they still could be your customer. No, you can't eat that. That's not for you. So they could still be your customer. Can you tell we want to go out?
Is he exempt employee, Brenda? Because if he's exempt, you can tell him no.
Yeah, I know. If I tell him no, there's going to be a huge mess all over the floor. So we don't want to do that. So this is work from home life showing up at its very finest right at the moment. So he just wants to check out what mom's doing and see what's happening. So that's what I would recommend, is just, be honest, be vague. Don't give them a reason. You don't want to do this on a regular basis, meaning that this is how you treat all your candidates all the time, just because managers can't get their stuff together. You got to make it very clear. It's like, listen, if we're going to move forward to this and we're going to be recruiting, we got to make sure that the position is in fact open, because you could get into some unlawful employment practices, and we don't want that either. Okay, you really need to go down. There you go. All right. So my question for you, my question for you is this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So what prevents a company from firing somebody who is older and replacing them with somebody who is younger?
The law, actually.
Which one?
Think at-will employment just means do whatever you want, fire anybody for any reason. And you can fire someone for a ridiculous reason, like you don't like their socks or something. That's legal. But you can't fire them for a reason that violates the law. And in the United States, we consider anybody over 40 to be a protected class. Somebody decided that 40 was old. And so if you're firing someone just to replace them with somebody young, you're violating the law. Right. And the thing is that us old fogies, those of us that are older than 40, we know this law. Everybody knows it. It's like one of those things that we know. And if you fire your 55-year-old manager and replace him with a 25-year-old, he's going to go, that seems like age discrimination to me. And then it's going to be up to you to prove that it's not. And that's going to be hard to do. And so really, this is a situation where if you treat your employees poorly on this, if you fire someone, demote someone or whatever, because you don't want these horrible old people working for you, they're going to sue and they're going to win. They're going to win, because you know who's on juries? Old people. Those of us over 40. But also I want you to keep in mind that just because the age limit, the age floor for a protected class is 40 in the United States, doesn't mean that you can fire a 60-year-old and replace them with a 45-year-old and be like, look, they're both old. That's still going to be considered age discrimination. Yeah. So don't think that at-will employment is your get out of jail free card for this. You have to treat people without regard to their age. And really, age discrimination is so dumb, because you may be like, oh, I don't want old people working for me. Well, turn around and you're going to be old in a minute. And so it's really in every single person's best interest to fight against age discrimination, because at some point you are going to be that person who the young whippersnappers are saying, I don't want to work with that old person. Yeah, you're going to get yourself in legal trouble.
That's bad. Yeah, we don't want that. Okay, so we've got two groups that we love to talk about. Why don't you go first and talk about your group and your crew?
Sure. This is our Facebook group. It's called Evil HR Lady. We have a group of people here that love all things HR. It's a lot of HR people, but it's a lot of people that just also are interested in that area. And we talk about all things HR, all things business, and we are the best source on the web for amusing HR memes. So check us out for that. And a lot of people in HR for small businesses are an HR department of one. And we really strive to be the colleagues for everybody in that situation. So if you have a question, a concern, or something you're trying to work through, you can just post the question and you'll get support from people there. Or if you want to keep it anonymous, you can message me or one of the other moderators, and we'll post it for you. And then you can get that help and support that you need when you're an HR department of one.
Yep, absolutely. And then, if you want, you're also welcome to join us over at the Next Gen Women in HR Facebook group. Suzanne and I are in each other's groups, so we do participate periodically. But, over in our group, we talk a very similar type of thing. If you got a question, you have an issue, you can come on over and get support. We do a lot of, free webinars. We get put out as much helpful information as possible as well. So we'd love to have you guys over in our specific groups. And on top of it, we actually are doing something cool. November 9th through the 13th, we are hosting an HR summit.
It's going to be so cool.
It is. It's going to be wonderful. Suzanne is one of our guest speakers. I'll be speaking as well. We've also got Tay Nelms, who is a former HR professional from the Bellagio Hotel and from Treasure Island, coming out of Las Vegas as well. And we also have Steve Watson. He is a CFO, and he absolutely loves to solve the money problem on how companies can save money on benefit programs. So this group, we already have about 114 people who have registered. We welcome you guys to come in. We can only host 100 at a time. So here's how this is going to work. This is, when we said limited seats, we weren't kidding. So the days, so it's going to be 1 hour each day, okay, per session. So we're breaking it up throughout the entire week versus just having a whole day of, being completely distracted. So when you, for that day, you want to jump into the room and you want to get your seat. If you can't get in and you're registered, I will send you the link to the session so that way you can actually see what took place that day. So we're not going to leave you guys out, but don't register to not be there to only get the link. Make sure that you register, get in. And if you can't get in, then we're going to go ahead and send you the link. So it's going to be pretty awesome. You can find that registration information on either one of our groups. You can also, message us, DM us, reach out to us on LinkedIn, any of our social sites, which I'm about ready to flash up back. Here you go. You can find me over on Instagram. You can find me up on Facebook. We're very responsive over on LinkedIn. And then Suzanne, once again, on LinkedIn. And then she is over on Twitter as well. So that's what we got for you guys. We are certainly looking forward to seeing you next time. And we'll say no yet once again.
That's right. Come tune in next week to see what else you can say no to. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to be Halloween candy. You can't say no to that. Maybe you can. I can't say no to that, which is, I have these double chins. But there you go. All right. The doggy's got to go out.
Yep. You guys have a good one.
More work to do. So we will see you next week with more no's.